Wednesday, July 26th on the Just Baseball Show. That is Arm Layton, and I am Peter Apple. And we've been rumor milling a little bit too much. So right now on this episode today, we are going to be talking about the top prospects who could potentially be moved in deals. We're also going to take a look at our sportsbook friends, that is BetMGM, and look at the division odds. Or is there a team being undervalued right now that we think is going to buy heavy, that we think is worthy of a wager? Or is a team maybe at the top thinking about selling? Any form like that on our good friends at BetMGM. So we're going through division odds and we're talking top prospects today on the Just Baseball Show, which is brought to you by BetMGM. Sign up and deposit into your newly created account using promo code Just Baseball. Download the BetMGM Sports app on iOS or Android, or visit BetMGM.com. Place your first bet offer and receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if it loses. If the bet does lose, your bonus bets will be available once the wager is settled. Aram, you, Jack, and I have been talking about every rental piece. We've done a million mock trades, but we haven't really gotten in depth to the potential young guns, the prospects that could be on the move, that teams who are selling should be looking out for. And we're about that time where the trade deadline, if contenders make major moves, they can separate themselves from the pack and end up winning the division. So we're looking at value on the prospect side and value on the betting side. Anything that you want to go over in the baseball landscape before we get straight into it?
Nothing too crazy. I do want to highlight one thing specifically, because this show, all of us are guilty of this. We have made fun of Dallas Keuchel a lot. Jack is probably the largest defender of this. Dallas Keuchel is throwing well, and I think we're going to see Dallas Keuchel in the big leagues sometime soon. The Twins signed him to a minor league deal. He's been throwing in AAA. He's been lights out, like absolutely lights out. And the last two outings have been spectacular. He has an opt-out on August 1. If the Twins don't add him to the active roster, they may trade him, because I think there's a team that may just take him. I talked to a couple guys that faced him recently, and they're like, of course, yeah, it's like 87 and it's not fast, but like he's putting it wherever he wants and it's really hard to hit. So we might see Dallas Keuchel one last time. Are you fading, Peter?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's one of those things where I got to see him come back up, right? Alek Manoah goes down to the Florida Complex League, has a horrible start there, looks much better in Double-A, and I made the mistake of fading him against the Detroit Tigers, where he looked much better. But then it took one start for him to get blown up again. Yeah. Adam Wainwright really, really struggling for the St. Louis Cardinals, then goes down with what appeared to probably be a phantom.
They said like inflammation everywhere, basically.
Just he went on the IL for being really, really old and for being sore, but shout out Adam Wainwright, legend. Love him. That's the reality of the situation. Then he came up and had a decent start against the Diamondbacks. Then it's the next start. So for Dallas Keuchel, let's see what you got for one start. Maybe they put him in a position to succeed. Maybe it goes 5 innings, 8 hits, 2 runs, a classic Dallas Keuchel start, and then the wheels fall off the wagon. Yeah. That's probably how I'll play Dallas Keuchel. But hey, he's pitching well. Yeah. It's not like the Twins need him, though.
It's exactly. It's funny that of all the teams, like if he was on the Marlins right now, he'd be getting the ball tomorrow. Like there's a lot of teams that could desperately use him just to not suck for 3, 4, 5 innings. One other really funny one that I noticed recently, Cole Hamels is technically still an affiliated ball. Signed a minor league deal with the Padres before the season, has not thrown an inning anywhere. I have no tracking of even a pitch at the complex or anything, maybe on the backfields, but no organized game. But he's still on the Chihuahuas roster, the AAA affiliate for the Padres. I have no idea what the deal is with Cole Hamels, but he's technically still on a roster. I just thought that was random, and most people probably didn't even know that.
So we have no data on him. Do we know when he's possibly going to pitch? Is it more of a help out our young guys, or are they planning on something?
They said before the season that the goal was June, and it's July 25th. He still has not thrown. He had shoulder surgery. I don't know if like the ship has sailed. They've said nothing. Mom, I was sitting in bed digging, trying to find articles, anything on Cole Hamels. So for now, he's just sitting on the El Paso or the Chihuahuas roster, El Paso Chihuahuas, just sitting on that roster, just not throwing. But I just thought it was really funny to see Cole Hamels still on an active roster. He has not thrown since 2020.
All right, so now that we got past some of the wily veterans that could potentially help out some contenders, maybe at least it would be kind of funny just to see them in Major League Baseball. Let's talk divisions, and we'll go division by division. And on BetMGM right now, I'll go in the order that they have it. And on the order that they have it, we're starting in the American League Central. So as we sit here today, the Twins are 54-48. A 4-game lead above the Guardians, who are now 49-51, and they have a 7-game lead over the Detroit Tigers at 46-54. And the odds reflect that, and I would even say they're a little bit big, but maybe that's telling. The Twins are minus 500 to win the American League Central. Guardians sit at plus 325. So just for people who aren't in the betting sphere, just for round numbers sake, if you wanted to win $100 on the Twins, you would have to put down 500. If you only wanted to bet 100 on the Guardians, it would net you 325 in winnings if you think the Guardians are going to win the division. So the big question is, will the Guardians win the division? The Twins, I think, are just going to add another bullpen arm and bolster that back end, with Yohan Duran still doing his thing. Griffin Jax is still solid. And Jorge Lopez, since he has returned from the IL, has been dominant, just running in that 97-mile-an-hour two-seam into the hands. He was flashing it really well against the Mariners, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. Twins have just been beaten down on them, showing who truly is the better team, and the Twins are really flashing that. My heart wants to bet on the Guardians, right? But Shane Bieber getting transferred to the 60-day IL, they're probably not going to trade him. Now, should they even trade Aaron Savali, how are they going to get much better? So my heart wants to bet plus 325 on the Guardians. I still think there's a little bit of value there. But as they play more games, as I watch the Twins pitching staff, every 5th day, they feel like they're getting an ace-type performance, and the offense is finally starting to show up. And watching the Guardians limp to 2-1 wins or blow it at the end of games because the bullpen is completely wasted at this point. How can I make an argument for anybody other than the Twins, which makes this a no bet for me?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, the Twins, they're looking much better playing good ball of late, which definitely helps. But it's also the combination of the Guardians looking brutal and knowing that they're just not going to add anything. They're not going to make any changes. I think the Twins are starting to click here a little bit. You mentioned the rotation, how like every day it feels like they're getting a quality start. Now Kenta Maeda is like a dude. Like Kenta Maeda looks like the guy that they initially went out and got, before the injury. So when you have Maeda throwing that way too, I really think the one thing that this team is really missing, besides the fact that, Carlos Correa, we were just joking about him yesterday. I know he had the walk-off, but even that should have been 0 for 5.
Yeah.
The one thing they're missing is just another right-handed bat that can help them with the platoon splits and maybe play a little center. That's why I talked about Dylan Carlson or whatever. Maybe they go get Tommy Pham as someone that maybe you don't stick him in center, but at least he helps your platoon splits. Like they can make some under the radar moves and help themselves. I agree, bolster the back end of the bullpen, but I'd find it very unlikely that they slow down enough for the Guardians to catch them. Cause I think even in the best case scenario for the Guardians, the young guys throw really well. So some of their bats pick it up a little bit, like Quan and some of the others. I just think they're going to play 500 ball at best the rest of the way. Like, do you think that's a little harsh, or like, is it kind of just the reality of the Guardians this year?
It's the reality of the Guardians. I keep trying to buy and keep trying to find things, but with Bieber getting moved to the 60-day IL, with Emmanuel Clase not being the lockdown guy, with Trevor Stephan, he's just been blowing leads, and it's almost not his fault because it seems like he pitches every single day. And this Guardians bullpen continues to pitch every single day because their starters are not going longer than 5 innings, and they're just handcuffing themselves. I feel bad for Terry Francona, but at the same time, he has not been a great manager this year with the bullpen decisions. He has not gone to guys that have been successful for him last year, and maybe that's more on the players rather than on him. His utmost confidence in his stellar bullpen from last season, and the numbers are still good. But you watch the Guardians, and it's one of the more overrated bullpens in Major League Baseball right now. And their offensive statistics, they never really could hit all that well last year. This year, it's mostly just Jose Ramirez, and Josh Naylor has been unreal. But Josh Bell has not been any good. Steven Kwan's been pretty good. Ahmed Rosario's been good with runners in scoring position. But you get to the bottom of the lineup, Arm, and it's just holes.
Yep.
And what they were really good at last year was their starting pitching was stellar. Their bullpen was locked down, and their defense was incredible. Their defense is around Major League average this year. Their starting pitching has holes, and their bullpen is overrated. The Twins should win this division. I was wrong about the Guardians. They did not replicate the magic from last year, and I'm not fully giving up on them yet, right? I'm watching Gavin Williams look better and better start by start. Tanner Bybee is still good. But then, like, Logan Allen gets hit up by the Royals.
Yeah.
And they put up 3 runs against Ryan Yarbrough in the Royals bullpen. You have to win those games.
Yes.
And when you don't win games like that, how can I call you a playoff team? How can I buy more stock in you, even when it feels like at the lowest? Because I don't think that they're going to buy much. And they may just end up selling safe arms, which isn't going to help them at all, right? They could really use an Aaron Zavali right now, which they do have, of course, because they could use that length.
And they might subtract him. That's the craziest part. So to piggyback on the bullpen point, I mean, you look at FWAR, and I like FWAR for bullpens because it how much are you using them? And then, the underlying data. Of course, you can talk about ERA and those things, and that's important too because that's what you're actually getting. But I like seeing how much value. They're 17th in FWAR for their bullpen. Like, it's just not great. The ERA is a little bit better, and that's towards the better third in the league, but it's not like they're dominating bullpen wise. And that's a team that, to your point, has to have an elite bullpen to be successful and has to play great defense. And they just haven't. Bullpen ERA, they're higher up there, but again, they're walking more guys. They're blowing more leads. They're giving up more home runs. And I think this is one of those instances where the underlying numbers do matter a bit more than just ERA when we're looking at the bullpen.
Because we also have to look moving forward, right? If this bullpen is due for regression, what are we going to buy stock?
Yeah.
We can't. And they're not going to buy bullpen arms.
No.
At the deadline. The Twins might. So the Twins bullpen might get even better after putting out a lot of great starters, start after start after start after start. So this is a no bet for me. I assume no bet for you.
No bet for me. If anything, I'd be more likely to lay the minus 500 than to lay the plus on the Guardians. Like, seriously.
What about the Royals plus 100,000? They did just beat the Guardians.
25 games out. Holy crap.
The American League East, the most competitive division in Major League Baseball. The Rays are minus 105 still to win the division, while the Orioles sit at plus 120. So it's really, really close right now. The Blue Jays sit at plus 900. Yankees and Red Sox. Yankees plus 2,500. Red Sox down there at plus 5,000. But if we're talking about what the actual division looks like today, the Baltimore Orioles are first place in the American League East. I know Orioles fans, just hearing those words has got to sound really good after the past half decade of turmoil.
Yeah.
But they're here, and they're really, really good, and they continue to prove it, especially spanking the Rays at Tropicana Field. But the Rays are still hanging in there, even though they're 3-7 in their last 10 games and 4-14 in their last 18 games, 61-42 record, 2.5 games back. Toronto Blue Jays sit with a 56-45 record, 6.5 back, and the Red Sox and Yankees tied, even though they're both 6 games above 500, 9 games back. I'd like to say that the Yankees could potentially go on a run. I do not think that is going to happen. I don't think the Red Sox are going to go on a run either. I'll continue to say that. I'm not going away from it, even though they have been playing better baseball, 6-4 in their last 10. But the Blue Jays have been playing much better. I really think it's a race between these three. That's why I don't think it's a bad bet for the Blue Jays at plus 900. And the only reason I say that is I just think they should be closer. So am I going to bet on the Blue Jays? I still have to think about it. But first initial look, the value is there for the Blue Jays because you know that they're going to add at the deadline too. If we're talking about positive regression, this Blue Jays bullpen has been unreal. I think the weak point on the Blue Jays is their manager, John Schneider. I don't think he makes very good decisions back there. But luckily for him, he has a lot of really, really good arms to go to. Eric Swanson was such a great addition for this Blue Jays team. And Jordan Romano has been scuffling a little bit, but you know he's going to be better. And then they have a bunch of just seventh and eighth inning guys who just do the job every single time they go out there. You look at the starting rotation, Barrios is just shoving. He just continues to shove, right? Gosman's pitching like a Cy Young candidate. Bassett has been at least a solid pitcher.
He's been serviceable, for sure.
Serviceable. Peripherals say he's probably in the low fours when it's all said and done. Right now, he's at a 3.92. That's good. He's going to eat a ton of innings and just get you to your bullpen and give you a chance to win. I think if they add a starter at the deadline and their offensive statistics, you look at like, quality of contact numbers, been one of baseball's unluckiest offenses. I don't think Varsho's going to keep hitting like this. Bo Bichette's been scuffling, but he's going to heat back up. George Springer's going to continue to hit. Vladdy's already been hitting. So the Blue Jays would be my value pick just because I think it should be closer. How do you view the AL East right now?
I like it from a value perspective. You're the guy that like analyzes the lines really well too. And I'm looking at it just from the pure just roster baseball standpoint. It almost feels like a trap that the Orioles are not the favorites when they're 2.5 games up in the way that they're playing. Like, what does that line say to you? Because I'd be all over the Orioles to win it. I think even at even odds, I would take them. I that was my prediction, of course, though, was we did our second half predictions that the Orioles would run away with the division a little bit and overtake the Rays. I have some concerns, which we'll get into, that I think the Rays are going to be more aggressive than the Orioles. Because there's another report I saw you I think you quote tweeted it. I was just like, God damn it, dude. Like, please just be aggressive. They're going to be cautious, sleep buyers. Like, dude, just push the chips forward. The Rays are going to be aggressive. They are going to be aggressive. I really do believe that. And maybe that'll inspire the Orioles to be. But first and foremost, like, do you feel like that line's a trap?
No. I think if you like the Orioles, you should bet on them. So when I look at the Orioles and when I've looked at lines all season long, do you know who the most profitable team is for bettors this season?
It's got to be the Orioles, right?
The Orioles by a very large margin. Books have consistently kind of undervalued the Orioles all year. I assume when you look at most models, this team is due for regression based on the numbers. Like, models are probably saying, yeah, the Rays are better. Models might say the Blue Jays have a better roster than the Baltimore Orioles are. So the fact that they're plus 120 right now, they've been undervalued all year. There's anomalies in baseball all the time, right? Yeah. A team that I bet through the playoffs, the Phillies, I felt like they were undervalued all year and ended up making a World Series run. And I had a great playoffs betting wise because the Phillies just kept winning. It's kind of similar to the Orioles right now, right? They were big underdogs in almost every game against the Rays. What did they do, right? They were underdogs against the Phillies with Dean Kramer on the mound. Of course they won that game. They just keep winning ball games, and the books are not adjusting because I think the sports books don't truly believe in them.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, Cal Quantrill was a dog at home almost every day last season, and he didn't lose once. Sometimes there are teams that break models.
Yeah.
I think if there is a team this year and you believe in them, Orioles plus 120 is a bet.
Yeah.
My only issue is I think it's such now a toss-up between these three because I think the Blue Jays are heating up at the right time. Big win over the Dodgers, 6-3 win. We're recording before the Dodgers game, and I bet on the Dodgers, so I'm hoping Julio Urias delivers me a win. But the Blue Jays are heating up too. That's why it's like, if you like the Orioles and you've been on them, bet the Orioles plus 120. I just think the Blue Jays should be closer to plus 500, not plus 900, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. And I'll make my quick Orioles pitch separate to, the second half predictions that we made. But the one thing that stands out to me with the O's is like, dude, Gunnar Henderson's playing like an all-star. And in the first half, he was playing like a replacement level player, slightly above. So to me, they've almost added an all-star with the way that Gunnar Henderson is playing on both sides of the ball and the way that he has helped him. They're doing it without Mullins right now. They're calling up prospects like Westberg, who just hit his first home run, has been awesome lately. They're going to make moves, even if it's more subtle. They're going to strengthen the team. I'm waiting for John Means. I'm hoping John Means comes back. That'll help. But I can't believe what they're getting out of some of these pitchers, man. Like, it might just be real. Like, some of these guys might just be decent pitchers. So it's been interesting to follow. Again, the only thing I'm nervous about is I could see the Rays making the splash of all splashes. Like, I could see them, and we'll talk about prospects that could get moved, but I could see them going after some of the best players on the market. I don't know if the Orioles are going to do that, but I think the Orioles have a lot of in-house upgrades just by guys playing to the level that they're capable of. So I'm going with the O's on MGM. Like, this is one I'm actually going to like place once I'm back in New York.
Yeah, I'm chickening out right now. I'm not going to make a bet on the American League East. I'm still sweating out Rays plus 350. So that is my original bet that I made at the beginning of the season. Now they're sitting at minus 105. So I got great value there. But at the same time, if the Orioles do make a big addition and the Rays flounder a little bit, or let's say the Orioles don't even make that big of an addition, the Rays make a huge one, and they still don't play much better because the Rays have been horrible lately. They're blowing this lead.
Yeah.
Then I got to reconfigure. So that's why I'm only looking at the Blue Jays in terms of value. So if the Orioles were to win the division, I'm out on both of those bets. But if it's not the Orioles, I'm in a really good spot. I just don't know if I want to corner the Orioles right now in this market because I do believe in them, right? When the starting pitching, that's what we look at, right? You don't have the starting pitching, but the bullpen, they shorten games. So as long as these Orioles starters don't give up 6 earned, and if they do, sometimes the Orioles score 7 because the offense is so good. But we were talking on the Not Gambling Advice betting stream, right? We're talking about Aroldis Chapman when he comes in for the Rangers. How good is he? Yohan Duran. And then everyone kept saying, yeah, they're like the 3rd or 4th best relievers after the 2 in Baltimore. They have Cano and Bautista. 8th and 9th inning, it's over, right? And then there's so many other great options back there. So they don't need the starters to be great. They need the starters to be fine. And they've been better than fine. And the offense has been so damn good. Austin Hayes was an all-star. He was like an afterthought. We don't even think about him when we talk about Cedric Mullins and Adley Rutschman and Anthony Santander and Gunnar Henderson. And we could just continue. And then they bring up some of these guys. So we harp about the starting pitching when in reality, they have one of the best offenses. They have a great defense. They have a great manager. And they have maybe the best bullpen in baseball.
Yep.
When you find starting pitching, you can win a lot of games.
Yeah.
So
and Bradish like is matching every time he matches up with a star, like a stud with an ace, he matches them. And then I want to see him string a couple together. Last point I'll make here, but Grayson Rodriguez, it's all about the fastball command. He looked real good against the Rays. 5 2/3, 2 runs, 2 walks, 6 Ks at Tampa, where obviously they play phenomenally there. If G-Rod can even be that, not the finished product G-Rod, but just the 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 Ks kind of guy that just gives you quality starts. To your point, that's all you need. That's all you need. A lot of games. And I think he can do that. So I'm excited to see how G-Rod strings it together from here. And they've got something special brewing. I'm all in on the O's.
The American League West. So currently the Rangers are minus 125 to win the division. Again, if you want to win $100 on the Rangers, you have to put down 125. The Astros are plus 100 to win $100. All you got to do is bet $100. The Mariners are plus 2,500. The Angels are plus 5,000. And the Athletics are plus 100,000. I do not think the Athletics are going to win this division.
I don't think
but the Astros might. Let's talk about it. So the Rangers are 59-42, playing really good baseball. Just had a thrilling win for the Astros to crawl back within 2 games of the Rangers. Astros sit at 57-44. What a game. We can talk about that in a sec. The Angels are still hanging in there, though. I know they're 7.5 back, but they're still over 500, 2 games over with a plus 18 run differential. And the frickin' Mariners, they just cannot close out ball games. They sit exactly dead even at 50-50, 8.5 games back with a better run differential than the Angels. We can just boil this down to the Rangers and the Astros, unless you have a point of why you think there is any value on the Angels or the Mariners, because while they are both hovering around 500, we think they're going to be buyers. You had a really good tweet about the Angels that actually made a lot of sense.
So I'm going to answer your question with a question, which I know is such an asshole thing to do.
Asshole.
But Angels or Mariners? I agree. Like I think they're separate, but from the other two, of course. But who do you feel better about? And I know you had your prediction before the year. I know the Mariners have screwed you. I think it was a good prediction. I was with you. So bias aside now from the preseason prediction, rest of the way, gun to your head, who do you have more faith in? The Angels or the Mariners?
I have more faith in the Mariners just because I think the Mariners have played horribly. I think the Angels have still played pretty well, and there's still a possibility that they trade Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah. Let's say just for sake of argument, they don't trade Shohei.
Are they big-time buyers? Because I think the Mariners are going to be relatively big-time buyers.
You still think they're going to add?
I do. I think Jerry DiPoto still sees this as we can still make the playoffs here, and I think that's worthy of adding.
Fair. I think that's the probably the fair perspective too, because like as much as I want to, and I'm like, I want every Angels game I watch, I'm like desperately rooting for them. I know you're the same way, and like I just want to see them compete.
I know.
But the Mariners, even when they're struggling so much offensively, similar to what you're talking about with the Twins, like every day they're getting a quality start, or at least it feels like they got a good shot at getting a quality start, and that kind of helps you, and you can get hot that way. They can make some quiet moves that help them. How about just putting anybody else at second base? So I'm with you, but I think both of them are pretty far off. I do think it's a 2-horse race here. And you made the case a few weeks ago about the Astros, and just kind of watching this game yesterday. And I know it's just one game, but there's this level of like the Astros have been there and we're so unfazed by this chaotic game that felt like a playoff game. And we're at 9-9 and then they walk it off. And like you see Kyle Tucker score and he like doesn't even care because it's like this is just par for the course for them. They're focused on just getting to the playoffs. There's just this level of they've been there, done that. And I think in the dog days and we get to the end of the season, I just got more faith in the Astros, even though the Rangers are so damn good. At those odds, man, I'm back in your opinion from a couple weeks ago. Like, I think these teams are pretty much level talent wise, and the Astros have been there.
That's what I'm saying too. I bet the Houston Astros minus 145 to win the division when they were both tied at 14 and 11. So it was definitely a long time ago. And I just keep harping on this. I think the Rangers are playing some of the best baseball per expectations. And I think the Astros are playing some of the worst baseball per expectations. And they're within 2 games of each other. And the Astros have owned the Lone Star Series. So that makes me think, all right, when push comes to shove, who's really the better team? But here's my issue. The Astros, they play up to the Rangers, and they're beating them when they go head-to-head. But we got to put praise on what the Rangers are doing, because when they aren't facing the Astros, they're beating the piss out of everybody else.
Yeah.
And then the Astros, they're not playing up to par against everybody else. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Rangers end up winning this division and they keep this 2-game lead, because we talk about how the Astros are going to buy and they're going to get healthy. Well, the Rangers are going to buy too, and they already bought Aroldis Chapman. I assume they're going to add another bullpen piece, and they might go get a big-time starter at the deadline. Chris Young has been incredibly, he's been aggressive over the past couple of seasons. So when I look at these two teams, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rangers win the division. That's why I'm not saying, yes, definitely go bet Astros plus 100. But what I will say is I'm already invested in the Astros to win this division.
Yeah.
So if I was making this bet today, I would still bet plus 100 on the Astros. Thing is, I'm already invested, so I'm not going to continue to add. But it's going to be one of these two teams. And I'm willing to say and continue to say, and I think you're on the same page, we do think the Astros are going to win this division, but it's going to be razor thin. But if the Astros don't kill this deadline, if they don't get an Eduardo Rodriguez, if they don't get a big-time starter, because Luis Garcia ain't coming back, Lance McCullers Jr. ain't coming back, right? Brandon Bielak is not an option they can roll with moving forward and expect to win more often than not. JP France has been pretty lucky. Look at his peripherals. There's some regression there. Ronel Blanco, same thing. Christian Javier has fallen off a cliff from what he was last season.
Fair.
There's not enough starting pitching here. But then again, if they do add, the offense is so damn good. They've been there before. The bullpen is unconscious. Dusty Baker is going to manage them. Like, you give him just a couple of wins by himself. That's how good he is. Now, I respect Bruce Bochy, but he just isn't Dusty Baker right now. So I think the Astros have this slight edge if they add big-time starting pitching. If they don't, I think the Rangers win this division. It's key. That's key.
And I think the Astros know that, and I think they're going to make a splash. But to your point, the Rangers can get anyone they want. I mean, they can outbid anybody pretty much. They can match any farm system, and they can make a big splash. The Astros, though, I talked about it with Jack on the last episode or 2 episodes ago. They have a better farm system than people give them credit for, and they can make that move too. They can go get some good pieces. So I do think this division will be won at the deadline, and it's going to be really fun to see which team kind of pushes it forward. The other thing too, though, is I think the Rangers are a little bit more hell-bent on winning the division because you want to have that I think comfortable position. I think the Astros feel like they could win the World Series if they're the 3rd wild card team or the AL West champion. I don't think those guys aren't fazed by shit at this point. So many of them have been there, done that, and it's just. I know they want to win the division. Of course, you always want to win the division, but I don't think they're going to kill themselves down the stretch, run Framber into the ground, throw Javier on short rest to win the division if they don't have to. And I do think the Rangers have a little bit more desperation there. So that I'm not touching it. I would lean value Astros. If you have a strong feeling, definitely it's a 2-horse race here, but yeah, it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be one of the more fun battles to watch the rest of the way.
I think them and the AL East is going to be the most exciting battles to the finish. And we go to the National League East, and this will be pretty quick. The Braves are minus 10,000. So you would have to throw $10,000 to win $100 if you thought that the Braves are going to win the division. Phillies are at plus 5,000. Marlins are at plus 10,000. The Mets, the $350 million New York Mets, are at plus 25,000. And then you got the Nationals rounding it out at plus 50,000. The Miami Marlins are 11.5 games back of the Braves, with the Phillies right there, just 12 games back. And those $350 million Mets are 18.5 games out. So instead of picking a winner for the division, because I think we're both on the Braves, I'm happy to say, and I think you did too, correct me if I'm wrong, plus 125 on the Atlanta Braves at the beginning of the season. 2 units. We're feeling really good about that. There always could be. It's baseball. Anything could happen. Maybe the Marlins go on a run here. But let's more talk about, because we know the Braves probably not going to add a starter, right? Because they're getting Fried and right back. They don't really need to add anybody on offense, but they could use a couple of relievers, shorten games, and maintain the best team in baseball tag. Yep. But what could the Marlins or the Phillies add at this deadline to shorten the gap, at least? We'll start with your Marlins.
Yeah, the Marlins need a lot. We're doing all the trade deadline outlooks on justbaseball.com, so check that out, like all 30 teams, and I'm working on the Marlins one now. Pretty much almost all of them are done. They're in a weird spot where they need catching, they need a third baseman, all of a sudden they need pitching too. Like they need somebody because all of their young guys are about to hit an innings limit. So I think they go for like a cheap veteran arm, which would help, and they need to go get a bat. They definitely need to go find a bat one way or another. They don't have the prospect capital, so it's going to be very interesting. I'm very curious to see what they do. I think it's going to, depending on how the next few days goes, will kind of determine how aggressive they'll be. But for me, number 1 is a bat. Number 1B is just like a body, like Rich Hill. I'd even take just so you're not depleting the hell out of your young guys while also keeping them fresh enough for the postseason, and also just not having somebody coming in there every 5th day that's like an automatic L. They need a third baseman though, and they need a catcher. So I don't know where they get that. I don't know who's going to move the needle for them. I feel like if a team's going to make a move that can close the gap more so, I feel like it's the Phillies, right? Like I feel like that's a team that we know about Dombrowski. We know how aggressive he is. I just also feel like they have slightly more prospect capital, actually a little bit more than slightly, and they could go make a splash, go get a corner outfielder. I don't know. What exactly do the Phillies need? They could go for a pitcher, perhaps. They could do a few different things.
What I think they need right now is to get Kyle Schwarber out of left field.
Yes.
He's one of the worst left fielders I've ever seen play defense. Now with Bryce Harper at first base, the DH position is open, at least to give Schwarber some time off left field, so he's not playing 4 or 5 days a week out there and dropping fly balls and taking the worst routes I've ever seen. And he doesn't even have a good arm out there, which you wouldn't expect because he's a big guy with a ton of power. You'd expect him to at least have a rifle. He does not have that.
No.
So you got to get him out of left field. So no doubt about it, they should be looking for a corner infielder. I think their bullpen has been very good this season. The issue is that Alvarado keeps going on and off the IL. Sir Anthony Dominguez is still on the IL. Kimbrel has been great, but I think they need more. Now, Matt Strom's been great back there. A couple other arms have been great contributors, but I'd like to see them add another bullpen piece. I don't really think they need to add a starting pitcher. Wheeler, Nola, Taijuan Walker, Ranger Suarez.
Yeah.
That's what you got. And then if Christopher Sanchez, you can move him to the bullpen in the playoffs. Maybe he takes another step up because he has been pitching really well. Even though the Orioles won that game, it wasn't because of Christopher Sanchez. Like he gave them a pretty good outing, and he's been giving them consistent outings. So I think really all Philly has to do is add potentially a Lane Thomas in left. We could talk about a couple other options or just some relievers, right? We talk about the Rockies relievers. We talk about the Tigers relievers. Maybe the Yankees would be willing to part. Like there's a lot of teams with relievers that they can go get. I think the Phillies have a much clearer answer to the deadline than the Marlins do. And the fact that they're only a half game separated, I have more faith in the Phillies finishing second than I do the Marlins.
It shows you that the Phillies are a better team. Right? When you can look at the Phillies and identify 1.5 things. Every contender needs a bullpen arm. Everybody needs a bullpen arm.
Yes, exactly.
But if you can identify the one thing being, oh, they need a corner outfielder. Bang. Okay. Marlins, it's like they need a corner outfielder, they need a catcher, they need relievers, they need a starter. Like they're just not a great baseball team. They're just drastically overachieving, and they might, like you said, kind of. There's teams that do that, and they might do it the whole year. They need to go get some reinforcements, but I think for the Phillies, it could really put them over the top. For the Marlins, I think it helps them tread water and try to survive and limp to the wild card. I think the Phillies. There's a few different corner outfield routes they could go. Thomas might be tough just because it's in division and he's not going to come cheap. But again, if anyone doesn't care about that, it's probably our guy, Dave Dombrowski. But there's probably a handful of corner outfielders that they could go get for reasonably cheap, plug them out there, and helps from a defensive perspective, helps from an offensive perspective. And all of a sudden, this team is clicking a little bit better. They might have won the game yesterday that we were watching. Like, they lost because Kyle Schwarber laid out on a ball on the line that maybe a lot of other guys catch in stride. Yep. So Schwarber's bat's important, but I agree. Like, I think getting him out of the outfield will help a ton. I'm trying to think of like who a corner outfielder would be that could help them out there other than, as you mentioned, Lane Thomas.
It's light. It's like Randall Grichuk.
Honestly, like helps.
Yeah,
that's
helps.
Your 8 hitter.
Better. Yeah, he's better.
Plays good defense. He's been swinging it well this year. I actually like that.
Hits lefties. They got a lot of lefties in the lineup right now. They could definitely use another right-handed power bat, just fit in there, and he's a much better defender than Kyle Schwarber. The Tigers were also potentially floating Kerry Carpenter, who I think would be an incredible addition.
Yeah, I think they'd be possibly nuts to trade
one of the most underrated players in baseball, but you said it yourself. They'd be crazy to do it. He should be a part of the future of Detroit, not a part of the Phillies' future. But if Dombrowski decides, hey, we'll give you the sun and the moon for him.
You want Nick Abel or something?
Yeah, and Scott Harris and Dave Dombrowski, they're, was the Gregory Soto trade, that was a Scott Harris move, right?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, so they're on the phone together.
They're
so
homies.
Potentially, but it would take a lot for him. But Philly, if you got him, that is a big time piece. But I know Tigers fans don't want to give him up, so it's not really worth talking about. Just talking about other options who could potentially be available. But let's move on to the National League Central because these odds are fascinating, Aram. So in May, I made the pitch for the Reds at plus 4,000 to win the division. And I looked really, really smart because the Reds, they took control of the division. We talked about all the young guys came up and they hit a spark. The division was wide open. But the most boring team, which I think Vegas knew all along, and they're pricing it that way, the Milwaukee Brewers. So right now, the Orioles are 2.5 games above the Rays, and they're plus 120. As we sit here today, even though we have a Corbin Burns versus Andrew Abbott game, which could make the division a lot closer or maybe a little bit farther apart, The Milwaukee Brewers are minus 175 to win this division. So $175 bet nets you $100 on the Milwaukee Brewers. Or if you bet $100 on the Reds, it would net you $180, followed by the Cubs at plus 1,000 and the Cardinals at plus 3,000. And then you got the Pirates all the way down there. The books are telling us the Brewers are going to win this division. That's what the line says. Do we believe the line, Aram? Because the books are telling us they don't think the Orioles are going to win the division. But this time, and we kind of don't believe them. We kind of do, kind of don't. We're unsure. I think you're more sure of the Orioles than I am. But I'm pretty damn sure about the Brewers, and the books agree. Do you agree?
I do. And I've come out as a Reds fan, by the way, and I'm very outward about that. I'm all in on the Reds in terms of just rooting for this team. But the Brewers, you talk about boring. Boring helped them tread water when Corbin Burns sucked for his standards, when they weren't hitting, when Woodruff, who's still out, was out, but he's on the mend, by the way, up to 97 in his rehab start. That was a few days ago. This team's getting stronger and stronger at the perfect time. They tread water in a mediocre division, and they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the thing is, head to head, they've beat the brakes off the Reds. The Reds are an awesome story. The Reds are hanging around, but head to head, they beat the brakes off of them. Corbin Burns looking like Corbin Burns now, and then whatever they get from Woodruff, the fact that he's just coming back this season, I almost think that it should be even like shorter odds. I think they should almost be minus 250, because you look at the Reds as a team that's overperforming, that has a lot of great pieces. They're not going to be that aggressive at the deadline unless it's a John India move for a pitcher with control, which they've floated. I think the Brewers, with the way they're playing now, I know they're always bizarre at the deadline, but they bring up Sal Frelick. He kind of has been a big spark plug for them. Joey Wiemer,
Sal Frelick had maybe the greatest debut I've ever seen. Multiple
in the history of the world.
Catches at the wall. He had 3 or 4 hits. Right now he's hitting 500.
I think game tying and go ahead hit. It was actually the best debut of all time. Yeah. And that's a spark plug. Wiemer's been still really solid. Yelich is playing like an all-star
defensively. Wiemer in center, so good. And Yelich is back. We talked about. Jack was like, Cody Bellinger is back. I'm like, is he back? Yelich is
back,
much closer to back than Bellinger is, I think.
He's almost at 4 WAR and he's stealing bags. So with Yelich being that guy too, I feel really good about this Brewers team. I love the Reds. I think they can make the playoffs. I think they can hang around, but I think the Brewers are going to really get hot down the stretch here. I really do.
Yeah, we talk about how the Reds, all their promotions, and we're going to talk about, prospects later in this episode. But the Reds promoting Sal Frelick, Joey Wiemer, right? Garrett Mitchell went on the shelf. Bryce Terang. They have a couple of really good rookies themselves. And this Brewers team is atop the division without much production from Willy Adames all season, without a lot of production from Rowdy Tellez, and with basically no Brandon Woodruff all year. And Willy Adames is starting to play better over the past couple of weeks. Rowdy Tellez is due to return from injury, as is Brandon Woodruff. But the main key, I think, here, Aram, the Brewers bullpen is unbelievable, dude. Devin Williams, we know the story, is one of the best closers in baseball, maybe the best in the National League, just unhittable. But Joel Payamps, Uribe, right? Hobie Milner could continue. So many good arms back there that are shortening games after the likes of Corbin Burns, who also has a 1.33 ERA in July heading into the game against the Reds, which I assume he's going to dominate again, averaging 7 innings, 1 or 9 Ks per start in the month of July against teams like the Phillies and the Reds twice. So really good Brewers team. Anything else before we move on to the West?
No, I'm with you. And again, they've got more reinforcements coming. They've got guys that are kind of coming back off the IL that might get a shot that they can bring up. I think they make some small moves, and that might be all they need. So I'm enjoying this team, and they got Tellez, who's going to come back off the IL probably sometime soon. They've got other pieces. Abner Uribe is one of the nastiest guys, by the way, that you're going to find in the big leagues. I was talking about him a little bit. I was like, once he comes up, Pitching Ninja, frequent guest there. Watch some Abner Uribe. He has no idea where it's going sometimes, but it's 102. It's disgusting. He's also a psychopath on the mound. Absolute nut job.
John
crazy
Kruk. I was watching Brewers Phillies, and Uribe came in, and I think it was an AB against Bryce Harper, or it was somebody. He gave up a walk, maybe to Castellanos. He goes 101 sinkers back to back, strike one and strike two. Then a sinker in the dirt, which is fine. Just trying to get a sinker in the zone. Then 3 straight sliders for a walk. And Kruk goes, what? He's facing his own team that he's calling for. He's like, what is this guy doing?
He's a nut.
You see what the sinker is doing. Why were you throwing him sliders? Then he goes 4 straight sinkers to Bryce Harper, strikes him out. Dude. Just stick with it. It's 101 with sink. It's unhittable.
I was talking to, last thing I'll say real quick, I was talking to Griff because he just faced him, Griffin Conine, a couple weeks ago in Double-A. It shows you how quick he came up. He worked at 3-2 in the 9th inning and borderline take. So I texted him after the game. I'm like, yo, that was a sick take on Uribe. He's like, bro, there was a 0% chance I was swinging. Like that was 100% a suicide take. I was like, oh, well, good job.
It worked.
Yeah, good job.
Doesn't tell anybody else, but now it's on the Just Baseball's host.
Yeah.
Sorry, Griff.
Yeah.
All right. The National League West is the most telling line of all. What do you think the Dodgers are at? So I'll just go through the division. The Dodgers are 57-42. They're 4 games above the Arizona Diamondbacks and 4 games above the San Francisco Giants and 10 games above the San Diego Padres. And I don't think we're going to see Rocktober this year with them being 17.5 back. What do you think? See, Brewers 1.5 game up, -175. Orioles 2.5 games up, +120. What do you think the Dodgers are 4 games above their competitors?
I'm betting that they're like -250.
-750.
Oh,
that's the book saying.
I get it. You know, because everyone knows that the Dodgers are going to make moves.
Yeah. Like, what should I bet +800 with the Giants? No.
Oh.
Am I betting +900 on the Diamondbacks? No. Merrill Kelly makes his return from injury today. That's great.
They've checked in on Ohtani, though.
It's the Dodgers division, right?
Yeah.
So it's more of, let's just talk buyers at this point.
Yeah.
So Dodgers, what do they need? I would want them to they need a starter. Like, that's what they need. I don't want them to get Lucas Giolito or Jack Flaherty. I don't want those. And Jack is the classic. They're from California.
Yeah.
They're from Southern California. Make a great fit there. I mean, come on, Jack. Call you out on the podcast. I'm going to call you out in person, too. No, I'm just kidding. I know what he's saying, though, that potentially they find a home like that.
I'm sure Giolito would love to go there. I'm sure Giolito would love to play there.
But I think Eduardo Rodriguez is a little bit of a better option. I think if the Guardians decide to sell Aaron Savali, he's a better option. Like, I'd rather Jordan Montgomery, another arm on the Cardinals. He's not I don't think he's a Southern California guy. Jordan Montgomery, he went to South Carolina.
I have no idea where he's from.
Who cares? But he's a better pitcher than they are. I think Urias, even though he had an 8-run outburst against the Orioles, they just are kind of hitting everybody. I think he's going to get better. You're going to return Clayton Kershaw, and then you still got Bobby Miller. Walker Buehler, ever heard of him?
That guy's pretty good.
He's pretty good. He's going to be back in September. He's even telling us. We're the ones delivering that news. Feels kind of cool. Shout out Walker Buehler every Monday here on the Just Baseball Show. If you missed the episode, still live. I think it's episode 506 or something like that. It's on Monday. But they could use one more starter. That's kind of it. I mean, what are you really adding to the offense, right?
I'd say just get a starter. Get a starter, maybe a bullpen arm if there's someone you ID and you like, but we know their bullpen's already pretty damn good. Yeah, I think they need a starter just to take some of the pressure off of Kirsch too. And, they can kind of slow roll him a little bit coming back in and just make sure that they can maintain pace in the division. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, what else do they really need to do? They're the Dodgers. Like they look really damn good otherwise. Maybe if there's an opportunity to really upgrade offensively, they could maybe go find another right-handed outfield bat. Since Chris Taylor's kind of just been meh. But I think overall they're pretty darn good. I think the one main area is shortstop, of course, right? Yeah. Like that's the one spot, but they're not ruling out a return of potentially
Gavin Lux.
Yeah, Gavin Lux. She's drawing a blank there. Of Gavin Lux, like he wants to try to come back this year, but regardless, why not take a flyer on like Tim Anderson? If he sucks, put him on the bench. That's fine. I could that's the kind of move that I could see them making, and that's all they really need.
I agree. Diamondbacks, Giants. I just don't see, even if they need big time players, being big time buyers at the deadline. See them making small moves, not enough to win this division, though. I think that's the point.
Yeah, unless it's Ohtani. Literally, I think the only way the Dodgers lose this division is if one of these two teams snag Ohtani.
And if they do, it's going to be a fun end of the season.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Those are the odds courtesy of BetMGM. Remember to use promo code JustBaseball. And if any of these bets lose where you do put it on, at least you can get it all back in bonus bets up to $1,000. Remember, gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older. Prospect time, Arm Layton. Prospect report. But this time we're doing it a little bit differently. You're going to go over your top 5 prospects that you think could potentially be on the move for fans of teams that are sellers who want to know who they are getting back. And then we're going to end it with just a couple of guys that you've seen who are raking or pitching really well. Yeah. Without further ado, we'll go at number 5. Who you got?
Yeah, so I got Michael Busch, and this is kind of like not in any specific order, but these are the 5 guys I just really think could end up getting moved. Michael Busch with the Dodgers, talk about a dude that's just blocked as blocked could be, and just he's just shown way too much at this point to keep him in AAA. He needs consistent at bats at the big league level. I believe over the last handful, they sent him back to AAA again, and over the last handful of games, he's homered multiple times. Yesterday, he went 3 for 3 with a pair of homers and a walk. He walks a ton. He's got a ton of power. He's like that Max Muncy starter kit, except he moves a little bit better defensively. I see Busch as a guy that he's on the 40-man. A lot of teams will have interest in him. I think that's the guy that the Dodgers will absolutely dangle and probably end up moving.
And even some contenders could say, hey, we need a guy like Michael Busch. We think he could play right now. So that's Michael Busch, exactly, is not limited to teams that are just direct sellers looking for prospects. He's really key because he could be traded to a contender or he could be traded to a seller. Who's at 4?
It's a Spider-Man meme. Literally the same guy, Jonathan Aranda. At first, stuck at first/second base, but just rakes. Better bat to ball guy, not quite as much power, but better approach, and which is saying a lot because Busch has a phenomenal approach. I'd say, I guess they both just have great approaches, but Aranda with the Rays, like, is another dude that's just like, he's wasting his time in AAA. He's blocked by, on one of baseball's best teams. And it just seems like inevitable that the Rays are going to move him because 40-man guy, no spot for him. Nothing left to prove in AAA. He's a 1,017 OPS in 81 games, 17 home runs while striking out 20% of the time, walking 14% of the time. This is a dude that I think will absolutely get moved, and the Rays won't care. Like, it's the Rays. They have so many other guys. The no-brainer, and a lot of teams similar to Busch would have interest in him immediately.
Spider-Man meme. Could go to a contender, could go to a seller. Who's at 3?
So 3 is where it gets interesting because I look at the Texas Rangers, and I'm like, okay, who could they ultimately move to upgrade this ball club? And I look at Justin Foscue, another second baseman, but this guy can play a little bit, all over. He's a better defender by a little bit, and more of a bat to ball guy. Foscue with the Rangers, guess what? Blocked. And that's just kind of the theme here. But Foscue's going to be on our top 100 update right on the back end. He's one of the better bat to ball guys in the minor leagues, 91% zone contact. He's got a near 900 OPS in AAA, 11 home runs, but I think he's got room for more power, 103 mile per hour, 90th percentile exit velocity is really good. Another really good approach. But again, I could see, a world where the Rangers push the chips even further forward. And that's why my number 2 guy is also a Ranger, a guy that I think they'd be very hesitant to part with, but would be willing to in the right deal. And that's Luis Angel Acuna. If the Rangers want to make a splash, they're so loaded in the middle infield. They're with guys that are either locked up for 10 years like Corey Seager, or then Ezekiel Duran, who's got years of control, who's now plugging in there for a hurt, Seager. They could easily sell high on Luis Angel Acuna, brother of Ronald Acuna, who's playing out of his mind as a 21-year-old in AA. Looks really, really good. Will be a top 100 prospect in our update in the next week. And there's no shortage of potential suitors for somebody like that. I think there's going to be a ton of teams that are kind of lining up to be able to get somebody like him.
Do you think, though, Chris Young puts his head on the pillow at night and says, yeah, we got a really good big league piece, but shit, I just traded Ronald Acuna's brother who could play shortstop at his ranking? That's terrifying.
I know it is terrifying.
That is terrifying. Like, he might not be even the best in their system. He might be one of the best, but just the name value, I know me. And if I traded him and he ended up being Ronald Acuna Jr., I would just quit. Like, I would admit, I would go up to the podium when they fire me from the Texas Rangers and say, I unfortunately do not know ball.
Yeah, I traded the best player, like the best player's brother that was also looking really good. Like, yeah, it's risky. It's risky, but it's just, he's so blocked and the value could be as high as ever. So that's one where I'm like, I think I could see them doing something there.
I'm just making a joke. It was like Ronald Acuna Jr. a couple of years ago. Well, he's blocked by Eddie Rosario.
Yeah, there's not really much room for him. It's crazy though. Like, Ronald is so freaky. Like, that's what really put it in perspective. Like, his brother's damn good. Luis Angel's damn good. And Ronald, like, the data is just so much more absurd. It's just silly. Then the last guy, couple different Orioles guys I could go with, but I'm looking at Westberg succeed at the big league level. I'm looking at, Cowser already being there. Kjerstad, I feel like is someone that's really close to them, but I want to do a 2-for-1 here. Joey Ortiz, Heston Kjerstad. I could see one of them going if the Orioles finally decide to push the chips forward. Ortiz is so good. So good. And I think people really sleep on that. Like, phenomenal defender. Exit velocities are closer to plus power. He's struggling in a small stint in the big leagues. Like, who doesn't? And just keeps going back to AAA and demolishing baseballs. I think he's more likely to go because they've got more infielders and more crowded infield. He's an older prospect, but whoever acquires Joey Ortiz can put him at shortstop tomorrow, and he could start every day for them. And he's going to play plus defense. He can hit. And even if the bat takes some time, you're getting value there. I think whoever gets Ortiz could end up getting the most valuable player moved at the deadline. He might not be the most valuable prospect. I think by our rankings, he actually will be, but Joey Ortiz is still somehow underrated and he's blocked as hell. I could see a team getting really excited about potentially acquiring an everyday shortstop at the big league level.
Galaxy brain. And tell me if I'm crazy. Joey Ortiz for Emmett Sheehan.
Oh my God.
Weird, right? But
that'd
it helps
be insane.
both teams a lot.
That's not that crazy. I think that'd be electric.
That'd be electric. It fills a need for both teams. Young guys. Orioles need a starting pitcher. They get a young one with tons of control. Dodgers need a shortstop. I mean, they're getting Gavin Lux back, so it probably doesn't make sense. And it's not going to happen.
There's always been questions of whether Gavin Lux is truly a shortstop, and Ortiz is a legit defensive shortstop. Like, he is good. That's actually pretty good Galaxy brain there.
It won't happen because for some reason GMs are too afraid. It doesn't often happen, but it's happened before.
Yeah.
It's not outlandish. It's happened before. And it'd be really damn cool if it did happen.
I would love that.
So let's just talk about some prospects that are raking or pitching really well to end the episode.
Real quick. Everson Pereira hit a home run like 110 miles an hour, 464 feet, Yankees prospect. Absurd juice. I hope they call him up this year just so we can see what he can do. Big swing and miss, but he's putting up crazy power numbers in AAA since he's been promoted. Just been going nuts there. Cole Young with the Mariners. We just put out our Mariners top prospect list. Go check that out on justbaseball.com and the episode on the call up. First round pick last year. This dude is so much better than people give him credit for. I think he's a top 50 prospect in the game. People were, not sure about how much power would be there. He's popping 110s now, even though he's an elite hit tool guy. Shades of Daniel Murphy there. I love Cole Young and the Mariners. Ivan Melendez is a popular name, and I get it because just what he did in college and the kind of power he has. I don't love him as a prospect long-term, but we got to highlight what the Diamondbacks prospect is doing right now since he was promoted to AA, 23 years old, and he's just going nuts from a home run perspective. 8 home runs in his last 11 games. That's comical. He's also striking out a ton, 18 strikeouts in that span, but holy crap, is he hitting a ton of bombs. Couple more names real quick. Isaac Coffey, who I know is a related to your best friend, Isaac Coffey, the Red Sox, deceptive delivery has really been good on the mound, even though he's only 89, 91. Coffey's been awesome.
Isaac Coffey, cousin of Dustin Demner, who's been on this show a lot, also been a contributor over here at Just Baseball. They've been really excited because it's a funky delivery. And Dustin always talks about facing him, how the fastball looks different than any fastball you'll see because it's like riding up and in with that Joe Ryan-esque arm slot, just like the 3/4 low delivery, tough to pick up. And it's not very fast, but he says he could just throw it wherever he wants. Yeah. And it's not exactly Tanner Houck, right? But I feel like they're cut from a similar cloth-ish. Am I off there?
No, middle round pick. They fast-tracked him to double. His last 2 starts in double A, 10 1/3 innings, 19 strikeouts, one earned run. He's been awesome. And that's a system that does not have much pitching. So he's instantly becoming one of their better prospects on the pitching department. Yu-Min Lin, another like 89 to 91 guy with
Isaac Coffey also for the Red Sox. I don't know if we mentioned that.
Yeah,
Red Sox prospect.
Yeah. Yu-Min Lin, Diamondbacks, 89 to 91, super funky from a 5'9" frame, is just dicing dudes. He recently got promoted to double A, and in his first 2 double A starts, 13 innings, 14 strikeouts, a 1.38 ERA. He's already had 4 outings this year with double-digit strikeouts, including a 13 strikeout outing. He's so funky. I just think he's really fun. That's a name that could get moved too. I could see the Diamondbacks selling high on Yu-Min Lin with the way he's throwing as a left-handed pitcher. And then Ryan Clifford of the Astros. This guy's got special power. He was like an 11th round pick, but he got, I think 3rd round money, 4th round money. High school guy, 6'3", big juice from the left side. Astros may not even want to trade him, but if they make a big deal, Clifford's a borderline top 100 talent that I think could help them, get a good player in return. Big time exit velocities. He's hit home runs as far as 460 feet this year. He hit an Oppo bomb 450 at 108, and he just turned 20. Clifford's a dude to watch right now in the Astro system, recently promoted to high A.
So be on the lookout for all those different prospects. And definitely, if you're hearing us talk about the division odds and you keyed in on something, make sure to use it on our friends BetMGM by using promo code Just Baseball. That'll do it for the Wednesday edition of the Just Baseball show. Jack and I will be back Thursday, and then the 3 of us on Friday, and then Walker Buehler again returning on Monday, 5 days a week. And if you've been enjoying all of these different episodes, we'd greatly appreciate you rating and reviewing 5 stars, whether that be on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It's free. Comment anything that you thought that we said was asinine, or if you think we made some good points, or just anything that you want to hear in future episodes. Excuse me. Arm and I are rocking our Just Baseball hats right now. Get yours in the episode description. So much new merch has hit our merch store. Please go at least check it out. And even if you don't buy anything, just let us know what you like, right? We're a new company trying a bunch of different things. Just let us know, right? Yep. Through Twitter DMs. Ours are both open. You can find our Twitters in the episode description. That's Aram. I'm Peter. We'll be back tomorrow. And with that, thank you, everybody.